When I first started using R365, I was anti it in the beginning. But the more I went to the conferences and the more I met the people, it was more about, hey, these guys get it.
Welcome to Restaurant 365 Presents Behind the Numbers, a show where we talk to restaurant owners, operators, chefs, kitchen managers, CFOs, and everyone in between about what makes successful restaurants tick. Before we get started, quick reminder, like and subscribe the show wherever you're watching. Please consider leaving a review. It really does help. And it allows us to continue to bring you these incredible guests and conversations while growing and supporting our amazing restaurant community. And with that, I'm your host, Mark Cohen.
And I'm Rich Sweeney. And we're excited to be here today with Phillip Gay, the CFO and partner at investment and hospitality firm ES Capital and a partner with restaurant accounting firm Paperchase. Phillip has over 30 years of experience operating restaurants in both CFO and CEO roles, has assisted middle market companies with financing, mergers, and acquisitions as well. He's served as the president and CEO of Grill Concepts, CFO of California Pizza Kitchen, CFO and interim CEO of Wolfgang Puck Food Company, CEO of Color Me Mine, and CEO and COO of Diversified Food Group. The resume that just goes on and on. I'm exhausted just talking to you. You've already lived it. And on top
I'm
of that,
exhausted just listening.
all of that after graduating with a degree in economics from the London School of Economics and Political Science, which is great because I thought your accent was from Jersey. Phillip, welcome to Behind the Numbers.
Well, Mark and Rich, thank you very much for having me on the show. Very excited. And thank you for that intro. It's all downhill from here. So.
That's a very impressive resume. I can't wait what a breadth of experiences you've had in the industry. I'm looking forward to digging into that. So we always like to start, though, with sort of a big question, Phillip. So like right now, the role you're in, what do you think is the most important thing restaurant operators should be focusing on sort of day-to-day, week-to-week within those four walls?
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, thank you for having me on the show. I think it's interesting, as I have had all these years now in the industry and I look back and I look where we are, everything's changed and nothing's changed. By that, I mean, when nothing's changed, going back to the 1980s, it's always still about the employee. Happy employee leads to happy guests, which leads to happy profits. Not that there's unhappy profits,
Absolutely.
But it's like, how do you take care of the employee from day one? And it's not just taking care of them because, as we know, when they go to work, they spend more time at work than they do at home, and it's their second home. So one of the key things is just making sure that the facilities that they operate in, everything's working, the air conditioning's working, the maintenance is maintained, and you're not cheapening up on the quality of food that you're preparing for them. And that hasn't changed in the last 40 plus years in terms of what I've seen. Some operators do it better than others, but it's the name of the game since day one. So,
I'm trying to come up with a clever, they say happy wife, happy life. It's a happy employee, stronger EBITDA. I don't know what the correlation is. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We talked about this on another episode, right? Like you can automatically tell if a store is underperforming, if it's being driven by poor management or poor operators. It definitely correlates to the bottom line immediately.
Yeah, it's funny. You always have conversations about what really sets you apart and how you define who and what you are. And inevitably, you get into the conversation, is it people first or profits first? What
Right.
P comes first? And at the end of the day, it's always the people. Because, as finance guys, we can do great spreadsheets. But at the end of the day, they're just spreadsheets on a computer, how you execute and how you take care of the people. And continually, not just once, not just twice, on a continuous basis.
Yeah, that is a great point. So you've been in hospitality. How many years do you care to admit?
40, coming up to 40 years now. 1987 was when I started, yeah.
And you've been using Restaurant 365 now for how long?
Since probably 2017, 18, we started, yes.
Nice.
And then currently you've got Burger Kings and Subways. How many locations total are you looking over?
Yeah, so we just added 33 Burger Kings in January of this year. So we have a total of 55 Burger Kings and 74 Subways.
And so how many employees is that? That's a lot of people to keep happy.
Yeah, this is the scary part. Right now, we have somewhere between 15 to 1,700 employees.
Wow.
We are currently under IS. We are currently looking at a 100+ unit acquisition in the chicken space where we'll add another 3,500 employees. So pretty soon we'll be up to almost 5,000 employees. So,
amazing.
Dang. Just a couple of folks, you know.
Yeah,
just a few people to keep an eye on.
Happy. You know, and in Paperchase, we got a couple of folks too, and the same works there. You know, we have, we're coming up probably to 1,500 people now in Paperchase in offices throughout the world, from India, London, New York, LA, and Dubai, to name just a few. So,
and so this is interesting, right? You're sort of splitting your time between, you know, running your company and then also, you know, partnering with Paperchase to provide, you know, operational accounting support to all of your units as well, which is obviously a win-win. What was sort of the genesis of IS? How did this whole journey start for you?
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, it's all about people, and it goes back to my background. It's like when I started at California Pizza Kitchen, I partnered up with John Kaufman, who was the COO. I was the CFO in the late 80s. And we became fast friends and have worked together on and off over the last 40 years. John had met Tim Foley about 20 years ago, and they'd worked together. And about 15 years ago, I met Tim. And in that last 15+ years, we started this venture to acquire a bunch of QSR restaurants, tier 1 franchises, and move forward. We thought it was a good business model, taking our expertise in how to run restaurants, how to take care of employees, and to, you know, really on the operations and finance side, and put that together in the QSR space. We started in June of 21, and everyone thinks it was an overnight success, but we'd actually been looking for about 5+ years before that, kicking various tier 1 brands. And the criteria that we had chosen was non-California based, just because of the and I still live and love living in California, but it is a very, very tough
been there,
environment
done that
we can talk more about. But also a tier 1 franchise that really had its C-level suites put together in a direction that we agreed on, and a portfolio that we could step into at the right price and funding. And it's just like building a restaurant. You've got to put a lot of things together, and you've got to put them together right. And we spent a lot of time doing that. And fortunately, you've got both fortune and hard work and intelligence. You put them all together, and hopefully you survive. So.
And so that first brand was Burger King.
Yes, the first in 21 we started with Burger King. In 23 we added Subways. It seems like every 2 years we do something. In 25 we're going to add a chicken chain. So.
Okay, perfect. And then 27, 29, we'll just keep going.
Watch out!
You've got some lofty goals with this company, right? You want to take this all the way across the finish line.
Yeah, look, I think the consistent, great question. The consistent thing when you look across successful brands is, even if I go back to the earliest days at California Pizza Kitchen, one of the things that always stuck with me there was that the founders had a vision before they started. And the vision, even though it might have been simple, was we want to be the casual dining restaurant chain that serves America, selling pizza, pasta, and salad. I mean, there was more to it, but their vision was kept true from day one throughout. And, everyone laughed at them in the beginning. Oh, you'll never be a national chain. You're in Beverly Hills. And, you've maxed out at $1.5 million out of your 2,000 square feet. And so it's over. Well, they proved everyone wrong. And they had a vision and the strength of their convictions to run through it. From IS's provision, we want to be the major player in the QSR business, and I sound like Austin Powers. We want to be $1 billion brand, but it takes, and again, it goes back to that old thing. You can't do it on your own. You've got to make sure that you've got the support of the employees and everyone else to really put together to get to that point. And again, sorry, just switching because I do sit on both sides. Paperchase has a similar growth vehicle too. There's a lot of similarities in how we take care of the employees and where we go and how you get the funding for the business to take it forward.
Yeah, I guess with that a little bit more, kind of how did the whole Paperchase relationship start and, kind of continue to grow over time?
Yeah. So When I actually left the operations side after the, it's when you talk about the recession now in the mid-20s, it's like, which one? The 2008, 2010 recession. I set up, for lack of a better word, a mini Paperchase. And the reason I had set that up at that time, I was looking to acquire a group of restaurants from a larger group. I was going to buy like 10 restaurants based in Southern California. And what I realized was that they had no infrastructure in terms of finance and accounting. So while
Shocking.
I knew it would take 6 months, really shocking, right? So while it would take 9 months to 12 months to put the deal together, I figured, well, I might as well put the infrastructure together. Well, the deal never happened with the restaurants, but all of a sudden this little business just kept growing. And so it kept growing and growing. So my little Paperchase that started in 2010, which was Triple Enterprises, which was just two of us, grew to almost 100 people. We had offices in India and the Philippines and Los Angeles. And then I met Nish in 2022, right after we were done with COVID. And we had very similar philosophies. It was about the people. He wanted to grow the company. He was a lot younger and better looking than me, had the same hairstyle. But we shared a philosophy. And the one thing I knew is I needed more infrastructure and support to really support not just the ICEs of the world, but all our clients that we were dealing with. And whether it was, working more with R365 and the people and the training. And it was a marriage made in heaven. And it's funny, it's almost 3 years that we joined together. And it seems like 2 weeks. So I can't believe how quick the time has gone. But
that's good. It's better than it feel like it's dragging on forever. You know, like those are the best relationships that feel like time has just flown by.
That's right. The odds were, everyone said, well, you won't last 6 months or a year. So I'm going to start collecting my big dollar bets from all my friends and everything else.
Right. Nobody believed in California Pizza Kitchen, but now everybody knows what a barbecue chicken pizza is. So,
well, it's funny.
You
You mentioned my background. So at the time, I was a CPA working for one of the big eight, was Laventhorne Hallworth in the 1980s. And everyone said, well, how could you leave your professional career and go and join a startup restaurant company? Well, California Pizza Kitchen went on to fame and fortune, and Laventhorne Hallworth went bankrupt the following year. So you just, maybe I'm fortunate. Who knows? You never knew. You never know.
I dare you to doubt Phillip Gay, everybody. Don't. So it sounds very much like IS and Paperchase are on very similar trajectories, right? Pretty much aligned in terms of growth and strategy and where you're headed. So that probably makes things a little bit easier.
Yes.
So you want to be $1 billion company. You're working with Paperchase. You're using Restaurant 365, but you're coming from, I feel like, an era of restaurant tech that's sort of, I don't think restaurant tech was a thing, right? Like restaurant tech, I feel like is notoriously a young, it's a newer thing for us.
It's funny. How long do we have to talk on this subject, right?
As long as time we need.
So restaurant technology, and it goes to the comment I made, some things are the same and everything's changed. In the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s, restaurant technology was an oxymoron, like military intelligence and jumbo shrimp. But you had to patch everything together and it never quite worked fully. And you had like a room full of accountants and everything else putting it all together. And the one thing that struck me on R365, and we talk about Paperchase and we talk about IS, is, when you look at some software companies or SaaS models, good luck in speaking to people. You go on a website and you have to send an email, or you have to go on Facebook or LinkedIn and you send a message and you wait for a week to get a response. R365, the thing that struck me from the beginning is they build it from the people side as well as from the technology side. And every conference I go to, I really am impressed with the people we meet and the kind of the DNA of the people. They're excited to sell software, and when you think about it, coming from the restaurant side, we're excited to sell things that we can touch, feel, and eat. If it doesn't taste good, we know. So technology, and that's the point of everything's changing now. It's like people are afraid of AI. How can we talk about AI? And the important thing is that AI is not going to replace people. People are going to get replaced that don't use AI. So will our jobs change? Will things change? 100%. I'm like a little kid here in LA. We have Waymo, the driverless car that's driving
Yeah,
around.
we have those in Arizona. I've yet to get in one. I'm still.
I'm dying to get in one. But 5 years ago, if you'd have said you're going to have a driverless Uber out there, you'd have said you're on crack or something, right? and now it's just everywhere you go. And literally, I stop and I look, and it's like, is there really someone in there? But I think when you take that and you apply it, so what's going to happen is, a lot of accountants under R365 or people spend most of their time producing numbers. So now we're going to get out of the production of the numbers and really be able to analyze and understand what they mean and spend really quality time as the technology moves and allows us more space and time to really develop and understand what's going on. All too often, you meet from the finance side, people understand debits and credits, but you've got to step back and say, what does this all mean to really understand what's going on?
Yeah, I love the idea of these powered insights becoming more common, right? Like I don't have to go comb through my P&L to find, where can I find better efficiencies? Like we're going to be able to run it through our chat GPTs, and it's going to tell us exactly where we're blowing it, where we're hitting the mark, and how we can probably fix it.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. It's just sometimes I'm like stuck on a question and I don't know where to go, and I just Google it and it's like, oh my God, how did that happen so quickly? Right. Yeah, so quickly.
But I do fundamentally think, and Rich and I have talked about this, I think, on every episode, that it's still a people-first business, to your point, Phillip, right? It is hospitality, to your point, never changes.
100%. And think what's happened in the last few years. We had COVID. Everyone worked from home. And now we're trying to get people to come out from under the shelter of home. But even this technology, video technology, whether it's Teams, Zooms, or WebEx, and all the varieties that are out there that are every day, they're missing the point of, eyeball to eyeball, see the whites of someone's eyes and sit down. The art of that conversation and having a cup of coffee is troubling. It's troubling.
Yeah, so Rich and I go to our conferences all the time, and I'm constantly meeting people, and I'm trying to remember, like, have we actually met, or have I only met you like in this sort of virtual environment? Those lines are getting blurred a little bit for me.
Oh, it's that idea of like you meet somebody in person for the first time. And my favorite is like they'll always do this one and like look up at me like, you're a lot taller than I thought. I'm like, We've only ever Zoomed. How could you assume how tall I am?
It's so funny. I was just going to say, I'm like 6'3", 6'4". Simon in our office always questions whether I'm 6'3" or not because he's 6'4". But I was talking to someone the other day and he said he's 6'7". And I'm like, you don't look like you're 6'7" on the Zoom.
I will say, too, to your point about Restaurant 365, I've always thought of us as a hospitality company first and then a software company.
And it's an important distinction that people don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I go back to your earlier question of when I first started using R365, I was not I was anti it in the beginning. I don't even remember what the reasons were anymore. I think it was more on some of the outputs or whatever. They weren't fully evolved, and we were using at the time C2IT, which of course R365 is bought and enclosed anyway. But the more I went to the conferences and the more I met the people, it was more about, hey, these guys get it. It's not like, to your point, the earlier technology in restaurants, it's like, here, you're like the fifth user on this technology. Right. We really don't care about you. It's like, hey, someone raise the flag and say, hey, we care and we understand your business,
Yeah, it's great. I love when we get to, all I do is talk to folks who are looking at the software all day and talk to our existing customers. And, it's great when I talk to them and they bring up something that's a pain for them in the industry. And then, I get to actually show them, hey, this is kind of the solve that we have for it. And just to see the look on people's faces when they're like, I don't have to spend 6 hours, every week working on trying to do my third party reconciliation, just things like that, to finally have technology be embraced by restaurants where, before it was like no, get away from me, I don't want that computer anywhere near me, to now it's like, we've just got the computer in our pocket. So why not lean into that technology, make our lives a lot easier in the day to day?
No, 100%. And what you're going to find is that it's going to be, it's not going to replace people. It's going to replace the jobs 100%. That they're doing to make them much more productive. And, if we're more productive, then it's a win-win for everyone. So,
yeah, I mean, you said it before. It's not about, doing the getting into the numbers. And so whenever I talk to people, it's like you're spending your time doing data entry when you could flip that and do data analytics, really look at your numbers instead of just keying them into a computer and spending how much time doing it, redundantly. So yeah, Mark and I have said it all the time, this is a business that'll never change from needing people. But if we can get rid of some of those tasks that folks have to do that just suck up time, they don't drive revenue, they don't make the guest happy. It's just, literally checking a box, why not lean into a tech solution for that?
I want ChatGPT to audit my linen invoices moving forward. I want to look at another linen invoice in my life.
Oh, don't go with the linen. That's always a soft one, right? Third-party deliveries.
Top of my hit list: linen, and then the parking people. Those are always my biggest enemies when I was running restaurants. But it's funny, Rich. You're talking, and Phillip, you were talking about 6 years ago. If somebody said you'd have a self-driving car, I feel like if 20 years ago when I was in restaurants, somebody told me I'd have a P&L in 3 days of closing a period, I would have been like, "You're out of your mind."
Yes,
it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks to get that done. So we've come a long way for sure.
Yeah. Well, when I go back in the 80s, we bought an AS400, it was like $100,000.
Kids, you can Google that if you have no idea.
Just Google it. And then we had to have 2 or 3 programmers just to reconcile our bank account. And, and if you dealing with finance people is one thing, dealing with computer programmers in the 80s is a whole other thing.
MS-DOS days, yeah.
Yes. And you can Google DOS as well if you want to.
We're
aging ourselves on this call.
Yeah. I mean, what are you guys talking about? I don't know.
Yeah, Rich has no idea. But,
I know school.
Good one.
It speaks again to our company's culture, right? Rich is a former chef and top chef. I'm a former restaurant operator, and we want those people on our teams because they talk the talk, they walk the walk. But for me, it's always been about that inherent sense of hospitality that's either in you or it's not, right?
Yep.
Like, if somebody's been in the hospitality business, and it comes with that sense of urgency that you can't teach. I talk about this all the time. I can't teach somebody how to have a sense of urgency. I can teach them how to use our software, but I can't teach that, right? They either have it or they don't. I think that's what people love about our company, right? We're gonna reach out to you immediately. You're gonna get immediate feedback.
That's well said. And it's funny when you talk about the chefs and everything else. I got schooled very early, working with Wolfgang in the 90s. I always cracked up when, he used to meet with all his buddies and they'd be talking about the food that they'd use and how they'd have different ingredients to use. Then eventually they switched to talking about cost of goods and, prime costs and labor. You would never expect someone of that ilk to recognize it. It's important, but, we'd be struggling. To your point, you get current financials would be like 10 days if you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah. And now we wake up and we see exactly what happened yesterday. And, we can even look real time if we care to on the various locations. So.
And shameless plug, Wolfgang Puck does use our software as well.
no shameless plug required.
to your point, when you've got a Spago and your top line sales are Spago level, sales fixes everything, but you can always squeeze a little more out of that lemon, right? There's always efficiencies.
It is interesting though, but that's the old adage, right? But now more and more you see these companies that, revenue's not growing, they're challenging, our costs are raising everywhere you can. And previously we were afraid to raise prices. So now, and not plugging R365, but it does give you the tools and the abilities to go in and look at your scheduling every 15 minutes and see what's going on and where your key times are and be able to understand the analytics. And, it's there for you as it's set up going forward.
Yeah, just being able to have that kind of insight, that kind of intel. I mean, I will say it, and he smiles every time I say it.
He's smiling already.
Morgan always, loves when I have to sit there and talk to other chefs, and it's just like, listen, at the end of the day, everything you're doing goes back to accounting. right? Everything
Yes.
you do in the restaurant has an accounting implication. There you go, Morgan. I've said it again. Now I've said it on the podcast. But being able to have chefs finally get that business acumen of it's not just about the best ingredients and the best technique. It's also being able to look at this from profitability and making sure that we're going to be able to stay sustainably open while still using the best possible ingredients and technique and staff. But knowing that you have to be mindful of all those different pieces. It's not just, I'm going to buy the best butter. It's knowing, well, I'm going to buy that and how much of it can I use and how is that going to impact my cost and how do I have to pass that along, to the guest to have that impact at the end of the day and make sure I'm not painting myself into a corner where everybody says, you had amazing food, but I can't, I don't know why they went out of business. Instead, being able to run that balance that a lot of chefs didn't, they didn't have the wherewithal before. It was more just about the artistry. Now it's about the artistry and the business side of it as well.
Yeah. No, it's well said, because if you're opening a restaurant, it's like one of those industries that it combines so many different disciplines, from real estate location to architecture to construction. And then, you got to hire the staff, you got to open the restaurant, you got to serve hot food hot and cold food cold and on time. It all sounds so simple. And now you've got to make sure that you have your investors and your profile and your cash in hand, because, one of my friends, I always use his line. He says, the only reasons restaurants fail is that they run out of cash, which is very funny. But looking at the P&L and looking in the past isn't going to be able to predict when you're going to run out of cash. So just understanding and getting through all those numbers and really cleaning it up is so key.
It is fun. I remember back in the day when we were first implementing the product, you'd get people coming over to our solution that had never really seen accrual, accounting or a P&L. And they look at the bottom line and they see what their profit line is, and they look in their bank and they're like, well, where is that money? I'm like, you've already spent it.
I figured that's where you were going. I know. And then you have to explain, well, they're not tied together.
Right. They do not correlate to each other. Cash flow and net profit are very, very different things. I'm trying to piece together I feel like there's a pizza timeline in your past. So you're with Wolfgang Puck, who famously had like the smoked salmon pizza. Then your California Pizza Kitchen, you've got the barbecue chicken pizza. I just want to I'm going to keep going down your resume and find all the unique pizzas that have been.
No, pizza hasn't figured for a while now.
I know. Maybe that's 2027.
We're working with exactly. Only in odd years. Well, maybe pizza's the even years. Maybe we need to bring it back in between.
I actually heard this great story about Wolfgang Puck that Johnny Carson used to come in to Spago after recording the Tonight Show, and he would order like 15, 20 pizzas at a time and take them home. And Wolfgang finally said, what are you doing with all of these pizzas? And Johnny Carson said, I'm freezing them. And Wolfgang Puck almost had a heart attack. He said, you're freezing my pizzas? And that was sort of the genesis for his, frozen pizza empire that he now has.
Oh, that's
I thought it was a great story.
That's crazy.
Funny. I'd not heard that one. That's hilarious. Yeah.
I don't know if it's true or not. I was hoping you could validate that for me. We'll find out.
It's probably got truth to it. There's a lot of stories in the backgrounds there.
I mean, are you kidding? The restaurant scene in LA in the 80s, there's probably there's several books I'm sure have been written on that already.
Yeah. Yes.
So from a growing tech stack standpoint, Phillip, what are you guys working on now? Are you getting into data warehousing? Are you playing with AI at all? Sort of what's the next frontier?
Yeah, yes to all. I mean, both on the Paperchase side and on the IS side, anyone that goes to the comment, anyone that's not looking at AI and how it can assist and help them going forward will kind of get left behind at one point. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different variations of it, but just been talking to groups that are looking to invest into AI and play around with QSR companies to just almost eliminate some of the kind of data entry out of the systems altogether, and how it's automated going forward. I mean, every big company you're talking about is playing around with AI. I'm not sure that anyone has the final solution, but it will be evolving over time, right? So, and it's all about speed and efficiency. The quicker I can get numbers, the quicker I can react to them or be more proactive in terms of what's going on so that there's no surprises. But just it's all about getting the data in accurately, quickly, in the right buckets, and how then you splice and dice it. So, even though we got R365 and we use the ops side, we still need to slice and dice it down to the unit level and understand, are we getting screwed on linen costs, or are we,
Right.
it's because as finance guys in the past, it was always easy. Well, increase revenue and lower labor and you get more profit. Well, now the how, the where, and the other thing that's really changed is like understanding your day parts in your business. 10, 20 years ago or pre-COVID, it was always 80% in-room dining, 20% takeout. Mm-hmm. That's switched now, mm-hmm. So do you need to build smaller restaurants with smaller dining rooms? Some concepts have eliminated the dining rooms altogether. What's the best business model going forward? And it also used to be, hey, if I was in even the QSR, casual fine dining, I was open 7 days a week. Now it's like, it's acceptable not to be open on a Monday. It's acceptable not to do lunch Monday through Wednesday. And when you really analyze it and you're able to analyze it, are you making money in those timeframes? And yes, there's other issues because on your lease you have, non-close, you have continuous operation requirements, but, so I hope my landlords aren't listening. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for approval. So
that was always one of my mantras in the restaurant business, for sure.
Yes. Oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know. Won't happen again.
I mean, I think you bring up that great point of, you have all of this data and being able to carve it up and being able to see it. But I think, for a lot of folks too, it's how do you get that to your frontline staff? It's one thing to say, I'm in an office somewhere and I can look at the computer and I can run these reports and check out my spreadsheets, but it's something really different for that person who's in that QSR, who's running the shift, and knowing at the end of the day, those store managers are some of the most influential people when it comes to, managing your business and managing the bottom line. How have you seen things kind of shifting and changing for getting information to those people to help make them make better decisions?
Yeah, that's a fabulous point, because at the end of the day, you almost want a scorecard on a shift or a daily basis. Did you do great? Did you didn't do great? And how do you reward those people that have really been part of that? And I think, I don't know if they still do it in the beginning. I remember reading Shake Shack at the end of every day. I think they give 1% of the revenue to the staff. And at the end of the shift, they'd all clap and they get handed out their money. Whether they still do that or not, I don't know. Or maybe that's one of those folklores in the restaurant industry. But wow, that's like instant gratification. But that goes to kind of the point we were saying at the beginning is like, how do you communicate to employees? How do you continually communicate? And it's not just like, oh, you messed up. Because, you always hear when you mess up, but it's more like, how do we celebrate the rewards and the people and everything else? And kind of one of the things we're working on is a one-sheet daily scorecard. What were my KPIs? When you're with the franchisees and the various ones, they always have franchisee scorecards, but they're usually done on a quarterly basis. But how do you take all of that and do it almost on a daily basis and communicate? It's tough. And let's be honest, it's tough. It's a lot of work, but if you can get all that stuff in that data warehouse, which is what it always has to be, and then you're able to slice and dice it any which way through Sunday, quickly, not that you've got like 3 analysts, but just quickly getting to it, and then you're going to win, And it's funny, we were talking with one of our banks, and some of the brands that we're involved with struggle. And one of the banks said, it's like we knew coming in, when you guys came in, you wouldn't struggle. And this other brand, we always had a question mark. And it was all about the numbers, how they were presented, how it was communicated. They said we knew from the get-go, so it's just all the way through.
That actually, it's with you. This feedback loop you're talking about has been coming up a lot. Like, how do you? We go back to the original people matter, right? Like, if a store is underperforming, you've probably got a bad manager in place. And what are leading indicators for that other than just the numbers, right? So we're seeing a lot of operators now looking for that feedback loop, that daily scorecard, not just from the managers, but also from the staff. Like, how was your shift today? How did you do today? How do you feel like the shift was run today? So there's definitely, we're seeing a trend there where that full circle, that 360 of the restaurant is becoming, I think, more critical than we anticipated.
Yeah, so Mark, that's again a great question, right? Because it's always operations and the store's underperforming. But when you
Yeah.
really dig into it, right? Number one is, was there a change in management? Because I think everything will tell you the consistency of management leads to better profits. But again,
Yep.
as you're growing, how you keep people motivated and with compensation to match what they're doing. But number two, I think, and we'll always say the hardest thing to do is run an underperforming store, and what do you do? And or if you're new in the market, how long do you give that till, where you've looked at operations, you've looked at marketing, you've looked at the surrounding thing? When is it time to close? And that's when it really gets into the numbers too. Did you sign a PG? How long's left on the lease? And sometimes, some of the clients we've got at Paperchase will say it's too expensive to close, but they're not making money.
Right.
And that's a real tough challenge.
It's a terrible place to be stuck in.
Yeah.
Very much so. But I mean, I feel like this is sort of what you've been doing with Aya since the street, right? You're finding a restaurant group that has 35 restaurants that are probably underperforming, some of them. You're able to come in, sort of steady the ship, because of the technology you've got behind you, because, and able to get it back in a place where it's healthy and operating with good margins. I mean, that's sort of the blueprint here, right?
That is the secret sauce that you've just revealed. So it's no longer the secret sauce, but it is. I mean, look, and underperforming is a relative term. It's like the prior owner might be happy on what they're doing, but they're not realizing the potential, and you've got employees that need to be remotivated or reinvigorated, and it's great. And when you're in the M&A business and you're looking at all these different companies out there, you get to see all different styles of management, operations, and look, I'm not saying we've always succeeded. I think the path to success is always littered with failures, and you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. And some people always say, "Oh, I'm so smart," but there's always an element of luck and chance, and you've got to recognize what's going on in the industry. But hard work is always the basis of what you've got to do it from.
Rich and I are living proof of that statement.
The strongest building block you can get is, everything else is it's built on top of hard work. And sometimes you get that little bit of luck on the front end, and then you got to work hard and you're like, I don't understand how I got here. But a lot of times it's that hard work. And then you have that lucky moment and you're like, oh, this is just like things just take off and go even better. So definitely, got to have that core foundation to build anything on. Any solid, great business is always built on that hard work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and then instilling that in the people that you're, working with. My biggest thing as a restaurant operator was finding that mentor, finding that person that empowered me and, inspired me to learn, to grow from just being, a floor manager to a GM to a regional, that sent me on that path. I don't think we do enough of that in this industry, right? I don't think there's enough of that happening in terms of support and growth.
100%, 100%. It's like someone to put an arm around you when you walk in and help. And hey, I got a problem, but I don't want to ask her. We've always played around with, hey, buddy up. And what we do is, if your buddy stays more than 30, 60, 90 days, there's a gift certificate, a little thank you.
That's awesome.
Or, trying to do something along those lines.
Those things make a difference.
Mark was saying it, kind of the mentorship and that piece of it. And I had worked with a GM at one of my companies before, where he had just a really great way that he was taught to look at things, and I just kind of folded it in where it's if you forgot your 4 Ps, really it's these 3 will turn into your 4th, and that's your people, your product, and your place will turn into your profits. And so if you can really make sure you're staying on top of your product, great product, great food, like you said, hot food hot, cold food cold, make sure it's really great quality, stay on top of your place, that it's clean and it's tidy and repaired, and like you said, the air conditioning is running right, and you make sure that your people are in a great place, and that they're it's work. At the end of the day, people aren't always like chipper at work, but like that they're happy to be there, not that they're disgruntled and angry. If you can take care of those 3 things, that's going to turn into profitability. And so it's been something that really has helped reshape the way that I look at a lot of things in business. As far as are we taking care of these three things? As long as we're taking care of these three things, then we know we're on the road to profitability.
It's funny you use that as the 3-4 Ps, because I have the counter to that. I think it's out of the Navy, the Army. It's like piss poor planning prevents proper performance.
I mean, also accurate. So
100% accurate.
I much prefer your version.
Yes.
I'm going to use that going forward.
I want us to write a 4P report now, Rich. We need a 4P report.
Yeah. Which one do you want? You pick.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
And sorry if I used a bad word at the beginning.
No, not at all.
No, not at all. It's former kitchen restaurant people. Come on. There's no such thing as bad words in our book.
And so, obviously you're planning some growth for the coming year, right? We're looking at expanding the portfolio, expanding the group, and then Paperchase is sort of on the same path. And obviously we're aligned with both of you as well as a company. Paperchase has been an awesome partner for us. We love everything they're doing over there. Anything else coming up this year that you want to promote, you want to talk about?
Well, no. I mean, on Paperchase side, we're always expanding our offerings and everything else. So, our core competency is obviously in the hospitality industry in both restaurants and hotels as we continue to expand that both nationally and internationally. And then taking that and expanding it into consulting practice in assisting in mergers and acquisitions, and financial planning and strategy to assist these companies. Because, historically, as we've discussed, people have been focused on their numbers, but the numbers is only a path to your future.
Right.
And how you utilize it is as we're growing at IS, we're also growing at Paperchase. And when we merged 3 years ago, we started evolving the practices and the growth. And several people have joined us. That Dimitri has been with me for several years, has joined to really head up some of that. And as I said, we've got some private equity investment in Paperchase to assist our growth, and adding people to the business to assist in the growth and infrastructure.
And it's almost, it sounds like you want to enable people to start their own little ISTs, right? Like consult on how they can become.
Tell me what you want. Tell me what career growth you want, right, or how do we assist you in your growth pattern? Because, again, going 20, 30 years ago, you would work, and after 2 years you get promoted, and after another 2-3 years you get promoted. But now it's like, we at IS we have a learn to earn. If you wanna grow, learn, and as you learn, you'll learn more. It's a great category, and we're doing the same in Paperchase. We're investing a lot in training and infrastructure and systems to assist in the growth.
Yeah, super critical.
That's awesome. I love that.
So, Phillip, we always sort of like to end this with some sort of hot take on the industry, something you love, something you hate. What's your hot take on the hospitality these days?
Oh my God! All right, so hit me with a low one there. How long do we have?
Let's go.
Yeah, I think. Look, I think the hot take is. It's easy to get involved in the doom and gloom of what's going on in the economy and whether we're in a recession or anything else. But at the end of the day, what you really want is somewhere that's got, bringing the excitement back into the dining room where people are excited to come and eat. Because the worst thing is always to go into an empty restaurant. And it could be very successful, by the way, because they do so much delivery and takeout. We've evolved into the millennial generation. So what worked 10, 20 years ago doesn't work anymore. I used to talk about the bell curve of concepts that you used to have, whether it's the cheesecakes or the California pizza kitchens, 30, 40, 50 years on a bell curve. Mm-hmm. Well, that's now kind of shrunk. If you're not hot and relevant anymore, you're going to lose the plot. It's really hard to come back, and we see a lot of places dying on the vine. But I think really the takeaway now is the concepts that are able to survive and thrive. And I think it's that combination. It's the same old story. Great service, whether it's, whether it's even a cashier at the front desk that's serving you with a smile and a happy greeting, good quality food and good value. And the value is missing. I think that But nowadays, when you go out to eat, it's so expensive.
Yeah.
And we're still in the mode of, hey, thank you for serving me, and we're just losing the art. Some people still get it and some don't. So I don't know if that answered your question, but there's just a lot of evolvement.
Like the restaurant industry, we just hit $1 trillion for the first time ever as an industry, right? So you're well on your way to your $1 billion company. But I mean, the want is there.
$1 trillion plus .001.
$1 trillion. The want and the need is there. People want to go out. They want to have those experiences. And so I know we didn't really get into it, but that guest engagement piece has also become one of those critical factors that was, I think, notoriously overlooked for years.
Yeah, so we got a wow, and it's not really a wow if you think about it. We went to a restaurant, my wife and I, a couple of weeks ago, and I still talk about it. She's bored of hearing me talk about it. We just did the reservation online. We went, we had lunch. It was like $60, and we left. The following day, we got a personal note. Hey, dear Tracy, dear Tracy, thank you for coming. My name's so-and-so. Wow. I'm the owner, yada, yada. And I reached out and I said, this is AI, right? I was blown away. And they're like, no, we actually have an employee that types out this note to every guest that we can.
Holy smokes.
That's a little wow factor. Now, they need to combine them, obviously, because as they grow and everything else. But it's nice. It was a little thank you. It was it's long forgotten. And I think that you can't forget that, The last thing you feel when you leave the restaurant is you get the check. And did you have a great value on that can negate everything. So
I was going to say, I don't know what they're doing over at Chili's, but something is working over there. Clearly, they've been reporting. I don't think they're writing everybody notes, but
it's the cheese pool. It's the cheese pool.
There's a value piece there. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. I didn't.
Yeah.
Of all the brands you could have said they're going to crush it, at post-COVID and tariffs and recession, Chili's are going to kick some ass. I couldn't have predicted that. So
well, it's interesting what they did. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they compared their price to McDonald's in California, right?
Right.
It's like, why would you pay $20? Right? Yeah, why would you pay $20 for a shake burger and fries when you can have it for $13 at Chili's?
Right.
And you can be served.
Exactly.
It was an interesting one that I didn't think would go far because I think their food's on par, but.
But you're right. That little wow factor, Rich. Go ahead.
Yeah, the reframing of it, kind of how people were looking at Chili's, and even like what you were saying with that note, that thank you note piece of it, that it just goes full circle to what we said before with the AI and the scalability. Where AI is going to come in and really help businesses grow is it's not going to replace the people. It's going to help the people take on more. And so now instead of having one individual person writing up all of those, then as they grow and they scale, now they can turn this into something that's more automated. Doesn't lose the fact that they're still sending out that thank you note that most other restaurants aren't doing. It's just making it so that they can continue to do it more without sacrificing that little special piece of service that obviously was something that you remembered.
100%. And like a Paperchase, to the point, going back there, we really want the account managers and handlers to spend time with the clients. So the more they're freed up from the business, the more time they can have that engagement. It's the same, whether it's in a restaurant or a Paperchase, it's the same engagement.
And that's a little bit of a wow factor too, right? I'm actually getting FaceTime with my my accounting
who
team.
Understands what's going on, and they can talk to me in real time and currently. Yes, 100%.
That's a super wow factor. Well, look, this has been awesome. I feel like we could go on forever, Phillip, but I want to thank you for joining us today. You can find Phillip and IS Capital and Paperchase on LinkedIn. Connect, follow them. Obviously, you can find their Burger King and Subway locations all over the country, as well as on all the social media platforms. And with that, Rich, take us out.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Phillip, for joining us. Great conversation. Would love to keep going more and more. And of course, we've got to thank everybody who is listening or tuning in at home. We hope you have a great shift, a great week, a great quarter, wherever you and your restaurant may be. Just make it great. And don't forget, if you got time to lean, you got time to listen while you clean. So like and subscribe everywhere. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. You can also follow us across social media and on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And when in doubt, you can always visit us at restaurant365.com.
Go find your wow. Thanks, guys.
Go find your wow. I like that.
Yeah.
Mark, we need to get...